Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that every single day celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such an amazing place to live, work, and play. Hope you had a great weekend or having a good Monday. And we have a very special show today, as you will hear me talk about here in just a second. This is like really special to me, and I think you're going to enjoy the story. It's a story of turning the chapter. It's a story of entrepreneurship. It's a story of a dynamic duo, and I could go on, but you'll understand more as we get into the show here in just a second. Let me share a few quotes with you. The first one I just came across. I don't even know who said it, but I went onto the internet, and it's been actually said a bunch, but it is really a good one. And so here it is. Life is like a book. Some chapters are sad. I think about, this is me injecting here, I think about Katrina and the chapter of that. Some are happy and some are exciting. But if you never turn the page, you will never know what the next chapter has in store for you. So life's a lot about turning these chapters and being willing to do that. Entrepreneurs certainly know that. The next one is by a guy named James Altucher. And here's what he said. Every day you reinvent yourself. You're always in motion. But you decide every day, forward or backward. Again, entrepreneurs are always thinking about how to take this thing forward. Now, there are going to be moments when you get set back, but you have to overcome those adversities so you can move forward. Two more. The next one is from Phil Wall. Don't ever feel like your best days are behind you. Reinvention is the purest form of hope. Make today your best yet. I love that one because that's certainly defines me. And the last one is by Oprah Winfrey. I had the opportunity to attend an executive leadership program at Northwestern, and it just so happens that is literally the time when Oprah was teaching a class at Northwestern at the Media Management Center where I was headed. And the people who were part of her class, I didn't go to class with her, but the people who were part of her class were incredibly inspired. I can only imagine that just about every day she shared something like this, but this is what she said. Follow your passion. And if you don't know what it is, realize that the reason for your existence on earth is to find it. Man, I love that one. And it seems like every step of my life, every new chapter of my life, I find a new passion within it, and certainly Coast Vue has been that for me in retirement. I can absolutely assure you that. I went recently to meet someone for lunch at Mary Mahoney's, and as I was heading up to grab lunch, I passed a very special store in Biloxi that's owned by a friend of mine. I'll tell you more about the store here in just a second. And I went in. And there was my friend Sharon Weeks, and we hugged. And while we haven't literally laid eyes on each other in a while, it's like it is normally the case with a good friend or a brother and sister. You immediately have the connection. It's just like you saw each other yesterday. That's the way I would describe Sharon Brune. Sharon and I worked at the Sun Herald together, shoulder to shoulder, for a lot of years. She literally watched me grow up, and I watched her grow up at the Sun Herald. And around 1999, she went to work for the Beau Rivage. She later married my mentor, Roland Weeks. And watching her evolution as an entrepreneur has been something to behold. And she's been in partnership with someone who's extremely important to her daughter, Shelby, who I have known since she was born. And it is a thrill to me today to have Sharon and Shelby on this show to talk about their incredible journey together in entrepreneurship. And without any further ado, let me welcome my friend Shelby Brune and Sharon Weeks to Coast Vue this morning. How you guys doing?
Hello. Good morning.
I'm doing well, thank you.
So Sharon, you're at your store. And tell me real quick, we're not going to get into the store story yet, but tell me quickly about your store and where it's located.
Okay, we're located in Biloxi in the same building as Mary Mahoney's, right here on Highway 90. I mean, you say Mary Mahoney's and everyone knows where you are. The name of the store is Grants for Her. We've been in business 10 years. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary on February 1st. And we're here open every day except Sunday, ready to have fun shopping.
Well, what I was impressed by is the passion that I saw when we saw each other the other day. You were so happy to be doing what you're doing. And I thought to myself, wow, just another great story of someone who's opened a new chapter in her life and really found her passion. That is for sure. And we're going to talk more about that in just a second. And Shelby, coming over to you, I feel so close to you in so many ways, even though we haven't actually talked to each other in a while. But man, I love you. It's almost like you're like a proud daughter. But at the end of the day, you have done extremely well with your career, and I can't wait to tell your story. But tell people where you're coming in from.
So I'm coming in from Los Angeles, California. I am based here. I've lived here for 16 years, and I actually have a fashion PR brand or an agency here in Los Angeles. So this is my home now.
Okay, so what's the name of your firm, and what specifically do you do?
So my agency is Allure PR Group, and what we do is we represent fashion brands. So it will be brands that you may have heard of before or up-and-coming brands. And so our job is to get the word out and to get everyone familiar with those new brands.
So when I heard you guys were going to buy this store and be partners together in this store and in this store, this special store, I knew there had to be some really cool evolution that was going to happen as a result of your connections in LA and your awareness of fashion. We'll actually come back to you in a second, Shelby, and tell the story of going to Ole Miss. You went to Mercy Cross. You got into fashion. You didn't take you long to make your way to LA. We'll tell that story here in just a second. But the connection between what you've learned over the years about what's cool and what the latest brands are, et cetera, was going to have this awesome connection back to your story here in Biloxi, that your mother is on the ground running on a day-to-day basis. And it really has turned out that way. I guess as you look at the way it turned out, it probably couldn't have turned out better, could it have?
So true. I mean, I think we had an idea in our minds of how it would look, but I mean, it's so much more than that now and growing as we speak.
So Sharon, how is it to be in partners with your daughter?
I mean, just perfect. It's easy. I mean, we get along. Sometimes we don't. Well, I don't know. We always she guides me. Sometimes she tries to push me a little fashion forward, and it's like, oh, we're not ready for that yet. And she's like, well, just try it, and it works sometimes. Sometimes we have to wait a year or so. They always say LA is first, LA and New York with fashion, and then it kind of sifts down to us, and that's true. But she does try to push me to bring things in before anyone else has them here, and people look to us for that as well, knowing that we're introducing new fashions here on the coast. So it's just wonderful working with her. Wonderful coming to work every day. Someday, just recently, I'm starting to open again on Monday. I have been off on Monday, and I do appointments only on Monday. But I had an appointment this past Monday, and then I never got to leave. It was just busy. And she said, "Mom, you're gonna have to start working on Monday. I mean, you just can't have off anymore."
Right.
Yeah, because she's not just an advisor; she's a partner in this effort. And business success means you have to be there and available and able when your customers want you to be, and that's really important. So, hey, let's just take a step back for a minute, Sharon. You've tell about your family. You grew up in Ocean Springs. Just tell your story.
So, yes, I grew up in Ocean Springs, born here. I was born in Gulfport, moved to Ocean Springs. I was an infant. I grew up at St. Alphonsus Catholic School through 8th grade, and then Ocean Springs High School. I'm the oldest of 8 children, 4 boys and 4 girls, all still living here on the coast. My mother, 84 years old, still lives in Ocean Springs. And my father passed away 8 years ago. But it's just, and I've been here, my whole life and never left. Love it and don't really yeah, I'll never leave it, don't want to leave it. But yeah, so just here, worked at the Sun Herald when I was in high school, started working there. I was 15 years old, worked there through high school on weekends, through college, and then ended up full time after college. And then, as you mentioned earlier, I worked at the Beau Rivage during opening. That was a real eye-opening experience, but learned so much working there for the time I was there as a hotel manager. And then after that, I did.
Hey, Sharon, let's do this. We're coming to the end of the segment. We'll pick it up right there on the other side. But I'm visiting with my dear friend Sharon Weeks and her daughter Shelby Brune, they're partners on a store a lot of women know about, Grants for Her. But the story behind the story is what makes it so fascinating. The way that they've connected, the work that Shelby's doing in LA to the store in Biloxi is really an incredible story. We'll continue after this break. Welcome back to Coast Vue. When I was going to lunch that day last week, actually, at Mary Mahoney's and passed and spoke to my friend Sharon, it occurred to me while we were talking that I'm amazed that I hadn't already come to the realization that I needed to have her own Coast Vue with her daughter Shelby so they could tell their incredible story. I've been following Shelby over all these years. She left Ole Miss and made her way to LA and got into the fashion industry and the kind of stuff that she was involved in. It was super impressive. I never fully understood all the bits and pieces of it, but now that I have a better understanding of it, how it connects to their joint, partnership on Grants for Her in Biloxi is a very fascinating story. And we're gonna be coming back to that in just a second. But where we were when we went to break is Sharon was kind of telling her story. It's amazing though, Sharon, to think that you started at the Sun Herald. Or I guess it was the Daily Herald at the time. And when you're 15 years old, that's incredible, really.
15 years old, Joan Tarrant hired me and worked there, like I said, until 1999, and then worked at the Beau. And then after leaving there, sat out for a little while, did a lot of volunteer work with the Junior Auxiliary of Biloxi Ocean Springs, with the Mental Health Association. And then I was also just working part-time at some boutiques along the coast, just for, something to do in my free time. And then joined Grants for Her in 2013, helped open it. I was the manager and the buyer. And I don't know if we mentioned this, but Shelby and I, when she was a little girl, our dream was to have a boutique together. She'd play house at home, and I'd have to play whether I wanted to or not. I'm not house, she'd play store, and I'd have to play with her. And so then when we got the opportunity to purchase a shop in 2018, we were just ecstatic, and so it happened, and here we are.
Hey, look, when you reflect back, it's amazing how time flies. But when you reflect back on your time at the Sun Herald, it's does it seem like yesterday or literally another life?
Both, I think. Sometimes when I ride down to Bees Road and see the old building, it's sad, because it's up for sale. But it just seems like yesterday. I was going there every day to work, and then at other times it seems like a completely different, another lifetime. Until I run into old friends, that I was there with, or coworkers there. But it was a long time there and a long time ago.
And like I said, we literally grew up there. I came there, I did an internship and never left, and finished school at night. And, man, we saw a lot of change happen in throughout that career at the Sun Herald. So much change in the publishing industry. And, when we first started talking about the internet, I remember there's this thing called the internet. What is it? And how is it going to affect us? And here now fast forward through today, would anyone have ever imagined that it would have changed so dramatically as it did?
I don't think so. And I still don't know, as you told while we were trying to get on here, a whole lot about the whole internet process. But yeah, it's just, it is unimaginable what has happened.
It is. It has changed. It has changed things so dramatically. Hey, we'll come back to you in just a second, Sharon. Let's move over to Shelby for a second. So, Shelby, you go to Mercy Cross. Did you always have a dream that fashion was something you were interested in?
Always. I feel like that was, on the weekends, that's what my mom and I did together. It's something that we enjoyed, and that was like our time of, togetherness and bonding. And so, yeah, and it's like until I was in college, I didn't realize that I could actually get a major and, make this my career.
So when people say fashion merchandising, business degrees, I'm sure that a lot of young girls decide they're going to go do something like that, and they never really parlay it into something. But you actually did fashion merchandising and a business degree, and you had every intention of parlaying it into something. What led you to LA?
So I remember I wanted to initially go to New York because that's the fashion hub of America. So that was always on my radar. And then my junior year of college, I started seeing this guy who was going to move out to LA and be an agent at this, big agency out here. And he convinced me to go visit him whenever he did initially move there. And he's like, you should really think about coming out here for work because I think it would be a great opportunity for you. And, he would always try to convince me that New York is somewhere you visit, not really somewhere that you live. And so, I was pretty open-minded. And so I came out to LA for a visit. And really the rest is history. I was convinced to move out here. I thought if I moved there for a couple of years, it would just be a great, starting opportunity for my career. And I could always go to New York later. So here we are 16 years later, and I'm still here.
And never went to New York. You had the opportunity along the way to study in Paris at one point.
I did. That was the summer before my senior year. I went out and studied at the Paris American Academy, which was more hands-on, more designer focused. So it was a lot of sewing, draping, classes like that. And I feel like it was there that I realized that I didn't want to be a designer. But I thought, one memory that I have from Paris that's really cool is that I worked at the Elisab fashion show and I worked backstage dressing models. And now he is a major designer and a pretty big wig in the fashion world. So that's really cool.
Hey, Sharon, we'll come back to you, Shelby. We're going to stay on you, but I got one quick question to ask Sharon. Sharon, Ann and I watched our son, Justin. He was always going to be the outlier in my family. He went to South America and to the equator and all over Europe and lived in Spain to learn Spanish. And the more he did that, the more we realized there's no way in this world that Justin's ever going to come home to work. He's going to end up in one of the big cities, which, as you know now, he lives in New York City working for Price Waterhouse. But you probably had the same kind of realization along the way that there is no way Shelby's headed back to Mississippi Gulf Coast. When did you know that?
The day she left. I mean, I knew. I knew she wasn't. And then when she got there, she just thrived, And then when I'd go visit her, I got it. It's like, that was her world, and that was where her career was. And but I was just so happy for her, and as I'm sure you are. Yeah, I know you are with Justin. They're happy, they're successful, and so that's where their life is and their job is. So I'm happy about it. But I knew from the beginning she wasn't coming back here. I tell you, I did have a little thought in the back of my mind that buying this shop may get her back here eventually. But now she's talking about opening another shop someplace else. So she's not coming back, and neither is Justin.
Well, but it's sort of the reality of having a child who is super ambitious, and and what they've chosen to have is their passion. In her case, the fashion industry. And in Justin's case, it was international, management consulting. Well, they weren't going to be able to do that from here. That's just the reality of that. And they came to appreciate that. And also, when you have an entrepreneurial daughter, they're never going to be satisfied with just one whatever. I mean, they have a growth mindset. They want to grow. They want to be more successful. And why not? Coming back over to Shelby. Shelby had a great visit with Angela Geis, Reed Geis's daughter, who owns New Contacts, is doing incredible work in L.A. Yeah. And then Don Wilson, who's from Coast of Mississippi, he's from Gulfport. He is credited with doing the first, music video, and he worked closely with Michael Jackson. And this guy is still a star there today. There are others that have left here to go to the big city to be successful, and they have had tremendous success. But it is a tough world that you're in. I mean, you can't. One of the things that Angela said is that she used her Southern sensibilities, the sense of developing relationships and being nice, and this kindness that's part of our DNA in Coastal Mississippi. She actually used that to her advantage in L.A. because people are moving fast and sometimes don't express respect. And not that they don't respect, it's just they don't express it in the way that we learn to, in a sort of a Southern way. And she uses that as her competitive advantage. Does that sound familiar to you?
Definitely. It's like, when I moved here, I realized everyone kind of has a hard shell on until you really get in there and get to know someone. And so I feel like, it's just like being an outgoing, happy person from the South that's kind to everyone. I mean, you can pretty much, talk to anyone. And so, it absolutely is a good thing to have. And a lot of people out here have never been to the South. So I feel like when they meet someone from the South, they're always pleasantly surprised as well.
Well, so you got about 6 years of experience working with LA agencies before you decided to open your own. 6 years, that's not a lot of time. You have to do some quick learning in those 6 years to get to a point where you had the competencies and the confidence to go do it yourself. You must have had some really good mentors during that 6 years.
I absolutely did. And, I think that my idea to get started when I first came out here was just to work for the designers that my mom and I would always buy at Saks, and our favorite ones included like Nanette Lepore, Trina Turk, and then Cynthia Vincent. They were all pretty major in the 90s and early 2000s. And so that's kind of where I wanted to get started. And so even to this day, those are my mentors, and Cynthia Vincent and I keep in touch still. And, if I ever need anything or, her door is always open. So
when we come back with Shelby, as we continue to tell this great partnership between Shelby and her mother, Sharon, we'll talk about what it was like to open up her own agency, and then we'll talk about the decision to buy the store, and we'll take it from there. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Coast Vue. I had these moments, and I share them with you all the time about why I'm glad I had the opportunity to start this show, because it really does give me a chance to kind of reflect back on all these networks and relationships and friendships and all these I've had, over the course of, all these years in Coastal Mississippi, working in the community and working across multiple states, to develop a lot of close relationships with people. And this is a chance to look back at them and tell their story. And I get as much personal satisfaction out of doing that, to reconnect, as that probably you get just listening to the story. But all the stories are so inspiring, and today is one of those days. We're telling the story of my friend Sharon Weeks and her daughter Shelby Brune and their partnership of Grants for Her, which is a store at the Mary Mahoney's complex. And you'll see Sharon there with her beautiful smile. And you will occasionally see Shelby there as well, but Shelby's out in LA sort of doing her thing with the Allure PR group. And as we were saying before we went to break, 6 years you were engaged in sort of fashion PR, and then you opened up your own agency. That was a big move, though, man. That was a brave move. Did it scare you to death, or did you just say, hey, I'm doing this?
It did, but I was so ready for something new, and I felt like it was just the perfect time. And if it didn't work out, I had a plan in place, like what I would do next. But I really just had a one-track mind and was going to make it work.
So Sharon, when you're working, and then the opportunity to buy the business came up. you probably didn't even have second thoughts about it. You probably, the first phone call you made was to Shelby to say, okay, how do we do this?
You're exactly right. Called her and she's like, we just do it. We're doing it. We've been talking about this our whole life. This is it. We're doing it. And so,
yeah, no, it's okay. Did it scare you to death?
Yes, I was a nervous wreck, lost many hours of sleep. Actually, and it was just stressed. I mean, when we bought the shop in July, and just changing everything over and just worrying about, oh my gosh, what if something happens? Just stress myself out. Shelby gets on to me about that all the time, says it doesn't do any good, so stop doing it. So I've tried. I'm getting a little bit better, but yes, it was stressful. But it's just been easy and fun, I think. And the reason it's been easy is because it's been so much fun. You just come and you work and you work and you work, but it's fun work. And so.
So here you are, Sharon, with an entrepreneur daughter who's opened her own firm and has all this experience. In a way, she sort of became your mentor, didn't she?
She is my mentor. And, she's really been my mentor since the day she was born. She's always been just this wonderful, happy baby person, and just gives me guidance, always complimenting me. And so she's always been my mentor, but now she really is. And I nowadays I normally do not make a decision unless I contact her about anything.
Yeah.
So yes.
I don't blame you. I don't. Excuse me. So I think about my kids, Tori, Jordan, and Justin, and I can't tell you how many times I've been in a conversation or situation where I'm thinking what I'm hearing back from them is way better than what I was thinking. I mean, they're all extraordinarily educated. They're smart as hell. And I'd be dumb not to listen to them. I love the way sort of the script has been flipped in a way. But Shelby, do you feel that mentorship? Do you feel a bit more responsibility? Maybe you have a bit more of a sort of a barometer for risk that can accept risk a little bit more than your mom, especially going into this gig. But did you feel that need to sort of coach her through it?
Absolutely. I feel like she is the voice of reason, but like sometimes it's like a little too much, and it's like I have to remind her, like, what do you have to lose? And if, something happens and it doesn't go the right way it's planned to, then, you figure it out along the way.
Hey, listen, Sharon, I was talking with Roland, and we were talking about how successful your partnership with Shelby has become. And he couldn't express it in prouder terms than the way he expressed it to me, how proud he was of you two and what you've done with your store. But Shelby was right to urge you to accept the risk and kind of suck it up and let's move forward. And now look at you, look at your smile, look at your success. She was right. Once again, she was right, wasn't she?
Yes, she was right. She's right most of the time. and I love that. I love that about her. But she's not she doesn't, brag about it, and she just handles it well. So, but yeah, she's right most of the time.
So Shelby, part of the story behind the story though is, there are a lot of people who have dress shops. There are a lot of people who have women's, shops. The key, I think part of the cool story behind the story is the way that you've leveraged your constant awareness of trends and what's happening in LA and around the world for that matter. You love traveling, and I'm sure that when you're traveling, you're soaking it all up. But the fact that you stay so much on the edge, the way your mom said that you'll make her aware of something that may be even a year ahead of itself. But I bet more times you're right about whether something's going to be a hit or not. The way you've connected your growing knowledge about trends and the ability to sort of make the move when you need to make the move to make the store relevant here in Biloxi, that's been cool, hasn't it? That's been sort of a competitive advantage for you guys, hasn't it?
Definitely. And, it's like I'm seeing things that, is just making it to LA, which I know for our customer in Mississippi, it's going to take a little bit. But the best part is trying to find a way that they can incorporate new trends and styles now in like a safer Southern way, if that makes sense.
A safer Southern way, and sort of a motherly type of way,
Yeah.
Sure. So, but see, that creative tension between the two of y'all as it relates to what might work and what might not work, that is actually part of what makes it work, because then it keeps you may not go all the way to the cutting edge, because that might overshoot what the preferences for coastal Mississippi might be, but you're going to be pushing up against the cutting edge all the time. And if one thing is certain, fashion never lets complacency settle in. If fashion is something that is constantly changing, and you've learned a lot about that, haven't you, Sharon?
Oh gosh, every day. And it's just been so much fun to learn about it. And going back to what Shelby was saying about, of course, LA, they're ahead of us. And then she tries to get us to try different new, trends here. And I've gotten to where over the last couple of years, and people know Shelby and of course me, but I say, well, this is what Shelby's wearing, or this is what Shelby has picked out. And it sells it every time, and I remember a few years back, I had these college girls working here, and one who was a dear friend too, and her thing would be, what would Shelby do? Okay, what would Shelby do? So, yes, I'm learning every day, but of course I couldn't do this without her. But it's leaning on her, and the people here trust her too, and they trust me through Shelby, I guess.
Yeah, I just think that's such a cool thing. And just I'll share my own personal bias for people who are on Facebook and YouTube. You can see this, but for people who are listening on the radio or on podcasts, I'll just describe to you. Shelby's beautiful. She's literally beautiful. She has piercing eyes, and she's always been beautiful. Her whole life, she's been beautiful. Her whole life. I think about Shelby, and you said it a minute ago, Sharon, but I don't remember Shelby when she didn't have a smile on her face. And, when Ann and I talked about you this morning, that's the first thing that came to our mind is, God, she was always so happy. She's always there to give a big hug and just glow. And I'm sure that we talked a little bit about sort of the Southern sensibilities and all of that, but the key to success in LA is you got to build networks. So you have to be able to build relationships with people. But, your smile has to make a big difference for people. Do you sense that, Shelby?
That's very sweet. Thank you. I do. It's like I hear that a lot, and I feel like it really does make a difference. It's like people will tell me the first thing that they notice when I walk into the room is my smile. So I've made sure to never lose that. So
it is, and you heard what I read at the beginning from Oprah Winfrey. Follow your passion. And if you don't know what it is, realize that the one reason for your existence on earth is to find it. And the fact that you found it and it emanates sort of through your persona is part of what makes you so successful. I can absolutely tell you that, emphatically. Hey, when we come back, we'll have a final segment with my two dear friends, Shelby Brune and Sharon Weeks, and we'll continue to tell the story of their unique women's store in Biloxi. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Coast Vue as I continue to tell the story of the entrepreneurial partnership between Sharon Weeks and her daughter, Shelby Brune. And I can't help but come back to this quote that I shared at the beginning from Phil Wall that said, "Don't ever feel like your best days are behind you. Reinvention is the purest form of hope. Make today your best yet." But when you're in the kind of business you guys are in, reinvention is like really important. And what I want to ask you about in just a second is about when you guys go to New York to market, what is that like? But before I do that, I was actually curious about something. We were talking about sort of the when something's in LA and New York, it may be a little bit longer before before it hits here, but your goal is to be on the cutting edge without necessarily crossing it too much, but still being on the cutting edge. What I'm curious about, Shelby, is that with social media the way that it is today, are people introduced to style maybe quicker than they used to be introduced to style, that maybe the bridging of the gap isn't the matter of a year, but maybe it's just a month or two. But what's your observation about that?
Yeah, it's kind of nice because you get an inside look, especially now at fashion shows, what they're showing in New York and in Paris. And so you kind of have an idea of what's coming for the next season. And then you can figure out a personal way to incorporate that into your own everyday style.
Yeah. So social media is a big part of what you're doing. So tell me about the importance of that.
Yeah. And I feel like, my mom does a great job for the store. She is very meticulous when it comes to doing flat lays and showing all of the latest styles that we've received. And she'll put outfits together. And I feel like it just kind of gives our followers an idea of, what they can wear to, dinner or to a cocktail event coming up. But Mom, I want to elaborate a little more on that too.
Hey, but I will say this, that the way that you may never have had a goal to be quote unquote a model, right. But when you do model the clothes that you sell in your store, you should have been a model, or maybe you still are a model because you are a model still. It's funny how that all worked out.
I'll take it.
But we have very little time left. One thing I really want to make sure we capture is that when you guys head to New York to market, what do you do? Sharon, why don't you start, and Shelby, you say what she forgets to.
Okay.
We hit the ground running. We land, we get in the cab, and we start seeing we can start making appointments or going to appointments, seeing designers. We go to their showrooms, and we pick out the clothes that we're going to have for the next season. Like, we just returned from New York a couple of weeks ago, shopping for fall. And so, we just go, shop, pick out stuff the whole time we're there.
Yeah. And it's really nice because, given our age range, we have a pretty wide range of shoppers that shop with us. And so I feel like I pick out things that are age appropriate for, the 20, 30-year-olds. And then my mom does a great job things that are perfect for her age range as well.
Wow, we didn't cover that part, but so this cross-generational reality that you can go to one store and see sort of both. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool, but that's actually really important, though, isn't it, Sharon?
So important. I'll have people call and say, who's your customer? And it's like, well, I have the high school girls. I have the great grandmothers, so we do shop for everyone here.
What's interesting to me, Sharon, I think about Roland in the early days of the Sun Herald being actually there, at that building. I think about his long relationship with Mary Mahoney and how close they were. And Mary Mahoney's was literally a Renaissance woman, and she read the New York press and was always on the cutting edge of everything. It is funny how all those dots connect, Roland's relationship to Mary, and then ultimately to Bobby, and all the entertaining we did, the executives of the Sun Herald there at Mary Mahoney's. And now you have a store there. It just it's just ironic, isn't it?
It is very ironic. And I tell you, I'm good friends with Eileen Mahoney, Mary's daughter, who lives here. That's who I rent the space from. Shelby went to school with Eileen's daughter. And so it's just like, just one big happy family here, from way back until now.
Is it, Shelby, again, you grew up knowing all these dots connecting, or, the dots were connecting in the way that I described them. Did you ever imagine they would continue to connect as you continue to grow up? It's amazing, isn't it?
It is really cool, yes. And I remember going to dinner at Mahoney's when I was a young kid and going into the gift shop, and I would have never thought back then.
No.
Isn't that amazing, the way that all played out? Lord have mercy. It's amazing to me. Hey, Sharon, so tell people once again where your show is as we come to the end of this segment. Excuse me, show where your store is. Yes.
Our store, the name of the store is Grants for Her. We're located in Biloxi in Rue Magnolia, but we're in the Mary Mahoney's complex. So if you're going to Mary Mahoney's, you're going to pass my shop. We're across, of course, from the Hard Rock and the Beau Rivage. We're here Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6.
And Shelby, real quick, I'll just say this to you, continue to lead by example. You're inspiring a lot of young women who may have aspirations to go and be entrepreneurs themselves. And it's exciting to have the opportunity to tell your story and to reconnect in the way we did today. Keep up the good work, my friend.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome. God bless both of you. It's been a pleasure to tell your story today. I hope the audience enjoyed it as much as we did. I really enjoyed today. Have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thank you.